31 a.m. and we are now going to be joined by Sister Mariam Al-Marakeshy, and she's a filmmaker, and this comes from the background of the documentary called Transit, and this is about young refugees who risk their lives crossing the Aegean Sea to Europe, and they are now stuck in Greece's Lesbos Island. Sister Mariam, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam. I'm very happy to be with you today.
Well, we hope today will be better. We'll have a better connection. Sister Mariam, welcome to the show. And obviously, yesterday we were talking about this documentary, and we spoke briefly about the background and the motivation behind the making of the documentary. And if you could just possibly just reinforce what we discussed yesterday.
Yes, my motivation behind making this documentary was to emphasize and show and uncover the whole crisis, the refugee crisis, from the moment the person takes the decision to cross the sea or to cross the land until he reaches his destination. If you remember this little toddler or little kid found dead on the Turkish shore with the red t-shirt, his name was Alan Kurdi. This story, which was very heartbreaking, I wanted to investigate about the other people who are facing the same destiny like Alan Kurdi. I also wanted to raise awareness about for the migrants themselves and the refugees who think that when they go to Europe they will have a better life. I wanted to raise awareness about the human rights violations that are taking place on the Greek islands and the transit camps. So it was an awareness raising and also to show the whole crisis from the first to the end, from the beginning to the end.
Right. Now, obviously, you've had many observations while you were making this documentary, and we just want to understand, providing us with some sort of a deeper insight into the lives of refugees. What sort of challenges do they face?
Actually, the challenges are countless because first, the challenges during the smuggling journey, it's very risky for them. They face death. The smugglers, as you know, they are criminals. The boats are not prepared. They put them into risk into the sea without any preparations. They give them fake life jackets. So this is the challenge for the journey itself. When they reach the island or when they reach the camp, the challenges are mainly the hygiene. There is no hygiene. There is no place to live. The tents are just barely can take one person, and they are living like 4 or 5 families in one tent. Also, it's not prepared for the cold weather. Many of them are dying because of the hypothermia. There is no proper food. They has to stand in a queue since 7 a.m. in the morning just to get their breakfast or lunch. There is no water for days. And also, one of the things that I've noticed is the fights between the races and the nationalities inside the camps, and they get injured and they get killed, and no ambulance and no police to stop this from happening. I witnessed a death of a family there. There was a fire explosion and the ambulance didn't come on time, and unfortunately the family died, and one of them was a baby, was few months baby, and we had to bury him. So this was very heartbreaking. So the challenges are countless, and unfortunately no one is talking about this, and they are ignored by the media and by the human rights organizations.
Yes. Now, also, Sister Mariam, what it's important for us to understand, and you've had the opportunity to engage with these refugees that are stuck on the island, and some of the issues that actually stand out in your mind, in your engagement, in terms of what they've been telling you and what they've been going through.
Yeah. Actually, beside the physical and the daily life challenges, the most things that affected me is the psychological aspect. These people are very traumatized. They are suffering from trauma. They are still haunted in their past. They are still haunted in their homes in Syria or in their Afghanistan or whatever their home country is. Many people are trying to commit suicide, and actually I witnessed this when I was there. I heard the screamings of the people who are committing suicide. Many people also are trying to get money by any means. Some of them are being abused by the drug dealers or the in prostitution, unfortunately, and child trafficking is there. So this kind of abuse actually is the thing that really affected me, because these people are victims of the war and of the violence, but at the same time they are also abused by criminals or by drug dealers or by those people, the smugglers. So they are victims from all aspects. Like they left their home, they are abused, they are traumatized. So I feel that the situation is really miserable, and we need to focus on it more than this.
Exactly. And I think for you personally, and we are all human beings, we all have emotions and, psychologically, mentally, physically, it is draining. It does affect a person. And I suppose for a person like yourself as well, what is this actually meant for you making this documentary, and how does it actually impacted on you personally, Sister Mariam?
Yeah. Actually, this documentary for me is unforgettable, the making of this documentary, because there were so much heartbreaking moments. Of course, I'm a human being, so I'm affected by the emotions, I'm affected by their sufferings, but at the same time, I have to be very objective as a journalist and filmmaker. But there are moments that you can't help it. For example, there was the scene of the life jackets graveyard, which is the graveyard of the life jackets of the people who died in the sea. When I saw the life jacket of a kid, fake life jackets, so they just abuse them and give them fake life jackets and they drown in the sea. This was a very heartbreaking moment. Also, when I visited the refugee cemetery where the refugees are buried without names, and even there were tombs for kids, this was also very heartbreaking. I think that the situation itself, no one can help himself from getting affected by this emotionally. And I have been suffering from trauma for some time after the shooting of this documentary, because the scenes are unforgettable. You can imagine hearing the screams of the people who are committing suicide daily, people who are dying and you can't help to save them, people who are living like 5 families in a tent and they are having shifts for sleeping. You can imagine, like, how these people are living. Actually, it's not imaginable. Also, there is something very important now, as we have the coronavirus outbreak. I can't imagine how these people are living. Actually, it would be a disaster. Now you are calling and saying stay home, but these people don't have a home, where they are supposed to stay. And I'm calling from your program that these camps has to be evacuated because of the coronavirus, or else you will have a disaster upcoming.
Exactly. And I think this is a problem right across the entire globe when it comes to refugees, because I think very little focus has been on the coronavirus and its impact on refugees. And as you mentioned, the conditions that people live in. Now, just as far as your message is concerned, and the message that this documentary is sending to the outside world, and particularly those who are not aware or who are oblivious to the plight of refugees.
For me, when making this documentary, the message is I wanted to uncover the true crisis. Okay, I say that there is a refugee crisis, but there is also a journalism crisis and a filmmaking crisis. Most of the refugee reporting is not showing the reality. They are just taking it easy, like, cutting and pasting or using existing footage. I wanted to go myself and to show the reality from the ground, and I wanted to get all of the angles. And if you see the stories, every one of them represents an angle in this refugee crisis. You can find the person who is committing suicide. You can find the person who is imprisoned and deported to his country. You can find the person who is trying to help other people on the shores or in the land. You can find the person who is trying to investigate about the truth inside the camp. So I wanted to summarize the whole crisis in this film, despite that there are 5 or 6 stories, but these 5 or 6 stories represent the story of millions of refugees out there that we need to focus on. And also there is one thing I want to mention, that the refugee reporting is very challenging because it's becoming very massive. Every news channel and every page and every outlet is posting about refugee crisis. The people started to get bored or get cold about it. They are not more. They are not anymore affected. emotionally or trying to get more awareness about it. So the challenge is to get stories that are very unique and that can really trigger the emotions and the empathy of the audience. So that's what I wanted to make through this documentary. Yeah.
Exactly. Now, Sister Mariam, just finally, for people wanting to watch this documentary Transit, what do they need to do? Where do they watch?
It's available on YouTube, actually. They can just write Transitfilm. And yeah, it's available on the internet. They can watch it. And I recommend that, yeah, everyone needs to watch this documentary because there is lots to be uncovered and everyone has to be aware about what's going on.
Well, Sister Mariam, Jazakallah so much. Really, we do appreciate your time with us this morning. And I know it hasn't been easy. And obviously, I can hear the emotion in your voice as well when you speak about this documentary. But I think this is important, much needed. And we will definitely encourage as many people as possible to watch this documentary so then we can appreciate the fact, the hard work that you put in, the effort that you put in, the sacrifices you've had to make as well. And we make dua that Allah accept, Allah reward your efforts as well, inshallah.
Thank you so much. I mean, this is what I hope for, actually. Thank you so much. I'm very glad to be here today and to raise awareness about this crisis through your program. Thank you so much.
Jazakallah so much once again. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam. Thank you.
That is Sister Mariam Al Marakeshy unpacking her globally awed and